Hi, and welcome back to Girl Talk. If you're just tuning in, we have been enjoying ourselves here at Contours Lingerie on Mineral Point Road. Later, we're going to talk to Tia Lynn, who is an award-winning designer. So we're looking forward to that. Speaking of big names and big deals, now we've got Laura Gallagher joining us. And if you haven't met Laura before, she is the owner of The Creative Company, and we're so glad to chat with you today.
Thank you.
So you've done some incredible things. Last year you took on a huge challenge with bringing Women's Entrepreneurship Day to Wisconsin, an enormous feat. You've also been really generous over the years in terms of just giving back, supporting nonprofits, doing some reduced cost or pro bono work. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of that.
Companies have a responsibility, I feel, to do more than just make a profit. And there are so many benefits to the organization in terms of employee morale and just in terms of the way that consumers respond to your brand. We just generally are going to navigate to a brand that's doing good in the community and doing more than what they necessarily have to. Right. Studies show that 90% of consumers will switch brands if all things are, relatively equal, but one is doing something good in the world and the other is not.
And isn't that wonderful that people have that mindset? And I think that's particularly true here in the Madison community, that people really want to support their business owners that are do-gooders, right?
And I like that you brought in the aspect of the employees feeling maybe a boost in their morale or feeling proud of working for you.
Yeah, exactly. One of the stories that I actually wanted to bring up this morning was that in 2008, which is in the midst of the recession, we learned that the River Food Pantry didn't have enough hams at Christmas time or enough turkeys or those kinds of things. And so even though we really didn't have the resources, you can dig deep and find them. And so I called up Metcalf's and I said, how many do you have? How many hams do you have? Because the river is short and I want to fill that need. And then I put half my staff in the car and we filled up my minivan with hams from Metcalf's. And then we drove over to the River Food Pantry in the midst of the snowstorm, and the other half joined us there, and then we all went out for breakfast or brunch or whatever it was afterwards. But that's what I'm talking about, just being present in those moments and helping out, because who knows, there before the grace of God go I.
You bet. Yeah, well said, Laura.
And you're a big advocate for your clients. What are they doing to make a difference in our community?
Well, last week I was at Marquette University for the Force for Positive Change event, which was sponsored by WARF and the Morgridge Institute for Research. And the Willie Street Co-op, one of our clients, was a recipient of a $12,500 Force for Positive Change award. So they do a ton, especially in terms of local farmers and hunger. Fearings, who is about to do their Schools for Haiti event, that's something that they don't have to do, but they're doing it, and they are difference makers, and they're providing an education through that event that raised $125,000 last year to many, many students who otherwise wouldn't receive an education at all.
Good point, Laura, too, when you say you don't have to do this, and you're choosing to do it. You mentioned an event you went to at Marquette University called Force for Positive Change. I'm curious what that was like. What was your takeaway or your biggest insight from that?
Well, I think that the one thing that's really changed in Wisconsin now is that you can become a B Corp, which means that you can have a social good purpose and still make a profit. So you don't have to be a nonprofit. And that changes the landscape. We do have a lot of nonprofits here in Wisconsin. And in fact, in Dane County, we have more nonprofits per capita than anywhere else in the United States. But organizations need to find ways to also make a profit, not just be donor dependent. So the B Corp certification creates more of a pathway for companies who want to do good and still be profitable. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the hot topics that came out of the Force for Positive Change conference, just that opportunity. There are only a handful of companies in Wisconsin who are even B Corp certified, which is a separate thing, but it's a good move in the right direction.
Wow. And when we're talking about this, sort of doing these things for a purpose, whether it's just giving back or sort of aligning your business with a purposeful organization or meaning, give us some thoughts on that. How do you sort of justify the cost? There's cost involved.
Well, I mentioned some of the statistics earlier, but I also think that just as human beings on this planet, we have a responsibility to each other, and that there isn't a problem on this planet that really can't be solved with the human potential that's already here. But if you're hungry, or you're being abused, or countless other challenges, you aren't going to thrive. But if each one of us does something, the whole world is a different place. even if it's just our corner of it. But we can do a lot with just what we have right now. If we all dive in and do something.
It's wonderful. Yes.
I always want to talk to you more, Laura. We gotta
We
go.
keep her
but
here longer, yeah.
It's just so wonderful chatting with you. Again, this is Laura Gallagher with the Creative Company. You're watching Girl Talk. We've got more coming up after the break.